Welcome back to Just Vetting, where we go beyond the transaction to explore what it really takes to build, grow, and lead successful veterinary businesses. Today's guest is one of the most respected voices in veterinary practice leadership, team development, and hospital operations. She's also a really good friend of mine, so I'm excited to have her on. Andrea Crabtree is the founder and owner of FurPaws Consulting. She's a certified veterinary practice manager. She's a senior professional in human resources, certified compassion fatigue professional, fear-free certified professional, and co-host of the Positive Leadership Podcast. She has spent more than 15 years working in veterinary hospitals in virtually every role imaginable, from kennel attendant and customer service representative to surgical technician and hospital manager. And before launching her consulting business focused on helping veterinary practice improve leadership, culture, retention, communication, and profitability. Andrea, welcome to Just Vetting.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm looking forward to chatting it up with you.
You have some background. I've known you for a long time now, but in preparation of meeting you today, I took a closer look, and I actually forgot, where you started. And, everybody's got some story how they got into the industry. And, wow, you started at a very young age and just kind of leaned into it. How did that come about? Like, where did that bug start with you in terms of veterinary medicine? What drew you to it?
Well, it's been a minute, right? I have to go back back in the day. It actually started when I was a very little girl. I grew up on a 600-acre church camp that was actually a horse camp, and I got my first pony at 4. So
in California, right?
You've always
been
in the
mountains.
California? Always been in California.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I've always grown up with animals. I was fortunate enough. My dad used to bring home critters, all kinds of different species, and it was survive or die. If you can rehab them, great, nurse them back to health. Otherwise, they get to go live with Jesus. And either answer was acceptable, but I wanted them all to live. So for me, it was something that from a very young age, I was surrounded with animals and nursing them back to health. And, fast forward to college, then I knew I wanted to be in the veterinary space, and coming from a family of entrepreneurs, I knew I wanted to work in business. And so how did I kind of smash those two up together? And there wasn't really anything at that time, back in the day, there wasn't really anything available for those two to kind of mesh together. I was a single mom at the time, and I wasn't able to commit the time to go to vet school and to be a veterinarian. So that was kind of off the table. So I finished my undergrad in animal health science and said, okay, what am I going to do with this? I went to work as a graveyard emergency veterinary at an emergency specialty practice. And I worked my first graveyard shift, and I fell in love, never looked back. It was like, this is it. I worked with all the crazies at night and saw the crazy cases, and, had my roller skates. It was 100 miles an hour because it was ER, and fell in love. And that was it. I've been, in vet med ever since. So, the path we take is always, never straight, right? But it's been great.
I'm trying to picture you in roller skates. Listen, we're about the same age. I know what roller skates are. You ask my kids, they don't know what they are. So,
I say roller blades, but no, they were legit roller skates.
Right. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh man, what led you? It's interesting because your story is not unlike many, if not most, of our clients. I find like it's the minority of the doctors who will say, well, I didn't really have a passion until I was in college or maybe after college. Most of them have some defining moment very similar to what you just laid out at a young age that kind of led them down that path, and one way or the other, they're like, wow, I just fell in love with it and leaned into it.
Yeah.
What led you to pursue? You have such a diverse set of certifications. What led you to do that?
Well, coming again from the entrepreneurship in my background, I my little hamster that spins on its wheel upstairs, it's very business minded, and so getting
Right.
in into the veterinary space, I didn't have a veterinary degree, and I didn't necessarily want to stay as a technician. I was an emergency supervisor and working the ER cases. I didn't want to stay in that position. And so I very quickly climbed the leadership ladder. And so
Hmm.
the next kind of step for me was in leadership was a practice manager. And there was no formal training for that at the time. So I literally stumbled on this CVPM, or certified veterinary practice manager. At the time, there was just under about 300 in the US and Canada. I think there was around 30 in California. And now there's around 1,000, just over 1,000 in the United States. And to, kind of put that into relative terms, there's 35,000
Right.
veterinary hospitals and there's only 1,000 certified practice managers. So do the math
Right.
there,
Only.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So getting into being a certified veterinary practice manager and not having very many of us, then I had a lot of colleagues and friends that were asking me a lot of questions like, hey, you're a CVPM. Hey, you had some formal training. You have some formal education experience. And then after being a practice manager for a while and recognizing, okay, I know a lot about the the business aspect of it, but I don't necessarily know a lot about the peopling, right? And people are icky and sticky and blah, right? So then how do I learn about the HR aspect of it? So then I did a ton of credentialing and learning and training, especially in the state of California. You know, we're a hot mess out here.
Right. Listen, it's a country into itself.
Yes,
We all of us joke. All of
100%.
us who are not from California joke about
Yeah.
when we dip our toes, and at least on the legal side into
Yep,
California, it's a whole
exactly.
nother set of rules out there.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're the only state that has our own HR credential. So I did a
Oh my
bunch of
gosh.
HR training and figured I got to figure out this peopling side of it and all the rules and regulations. And half the times I do like I know more laws up here in my head than I should for not, having a JD degree. So all the laws and regulations and figuring out running a practice and the regulatory aspect of it. There's so much regulatory aspect, and not just from the HR side, the veterinary medical board side, the OSHA, the DEA. There's so much regulatory side of it that as practice managers, we are the ones responsible for that. So there's so much you have to learn as a practice manager, and then recognizing that when you have a human component to it, then you have a ton of compassion fatigue, right? Veterinarians and our support teams, we are filled with compassion and empathy. That's how we wind up in this profession, right? That's how we choose this profession. And so we end up with a lot of compassion fatigue, PTSD, secondary PTSD. And so I did a lot of training in that, and then fear free as well. So just again, the path that we take, and as practice managers, when we have this, we're supposed to learn this. Well, shoot, I didn't know we were responsible for that. I got to learn about that. Got to learn about that. Got to learn about that. So the more we recognize as practice managers what we're responsible for, the more we do CE and training and learning, the more the credentials just end up piling up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, no, it makes perfect sense because you're dealing with all those different. Just to your point, you can pivot and deal with those different
Hmm.
issues.
Hmm.
In a practice, having that entrepreneurial background.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they take their veterinarian hat off. They're a business owner, right?
Yeah.
So how do they deal with that? And they're not trained
That's right. They
to
turn to
be
the
business
practice
owners.
manager and say, hey, or they turn to the consultant and say, hey,
Right.
the board's coming in to inspect me, or hey, the DEA is here. What do I do? Or hey, I've lost this bottle of Eusasol, or whatever it may be, and they say, what do I do? And they don't know. It's something that they're not trained to
Right.
do.
I know a lot of times when I'm talking with a client, they're very apologetic. Oh, I don't know this or I don't know
Hmm.
that. And I just try to comfort them and say, listen, when I come to I come to your hospital, I come to your clinic, I don't know why my dog, she's scratching or she's uncomfortable. You're looking at her and you're saying, Pete, you could do this, we can do this, we can do this. And you explain why you can do that. And I'm like, you know what, doctor? I'm okay with this, but I'm not okay with that. It's no different, I think, what you and I do as professionals, consulting them. I want to explain what the options are and explain to them. And they said, this is, then you make the decision.
Yes. Yeah.
So I try to say, it's okay. I don't expect you to know
Right.
this.
Exactly.
You don't get trained this in school.
Right.
I mean, it's just not.
It's not part of your curriculum.
Yeah. Why do you think that leadership is often like the missing ingredient in practice success? Is it because there's really no training on it, or there's not enough training on it? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's the peopling. I go back to I always say people are icky, sticky, smell like parvo, and it's so difficult. Leadership is very difficult. It's communication. There's so many different people in the world, right? And communication styles, and it's very, very difficult. It's one of the hardest skills to learn, to know, and being self-aware, emotional intelligence, being self-aware who you are, self-regulation. That's stuff that we don't practice on a regular basis. It's very new for us, and it can be very, very uncomfortable. And people don't want to step outside of the comfort level. They don't want to stretch. They don't want to be put in those uncomfortable situations. They don't want to have, the pit in their stomach, or, the tears or the sweaty armpits. They don't want to be in those situations. And so they tend to shy away from them. People fly me in to fire people because they don't want to. They avoid confrontation at all costs. And so that's what I'm really good at. And that's what I lean into. And I'm okay with it. Like I'll do it for you. No problem. You don't have to. Just go. You are really good at surgery. You're really good at diagnosing something. You go do that and let me help with the business aspect of your business, because that's what I'm actually really, really good at. So I partner really well with practice owners that want to shy away from that and step away from that. And then I will teach you and coach you and train you on how to be better at it. But if you suck at surgery, please don't do it. Right? Please don't.
Right.
Get a surgeon in. And so, you may be coached on it.
It's no different. That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it's the same concept.
You're saying they fly you in to do it. I'm thinking of like the Grim Reaper. He comes with some axe. They're flying you in to bring the hammer.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can be done with grace. Most determinations I do, people hug me at the end. They're like, thank you so much. Right. Yeah. It can be done with grace and compassion. It doesn't have to be the Grim Reaper.
You speak a lot about communication. I always think about community. It's the poor communication, I think, a lot of that times, which creates that anxiety or the stress, which somebody like yourself is really good at it. You can convey that, which is why I'm not surprised they give you a hug, even though maybe you're changing directions or completely saying, listen, it's not going to work out here. They're willing, they understand after you're done talking with them, because communication is, it's a skill. It really is.
Yeah. Something
that's got to be developed.
Yeah. Yeah. Years of training, practice.
One of my clients it told me, and I think I thought about it, because as I talk to more clients and professionals like yourself, it comes down to communication. It really does. And one of my clients said, the first year or two, you're just trying in practice. I'm just trying to learn what I'm doing, learn how to be a practitioner. And he goes, the communication, at least for me, he said, was I had to develop that skill over a period of time. Communicating with the staff, and then communicating with the clients that are coming in.
Yeah.
Where he said, I think one of his mentors, that person was very comfortable on both sides, always was. He goes, that wasn't something I was ever comfortable with. It took time. He goes, I'm good at it now, but I've owned, I got 3 practices now.
Yeah.
I've been doing this over 10 years.
Practice.
But it just didn't come natural to me.
It's all about practice. Yeah. I learned my conflict resolution skills as a bartender when I was putting myself through college, right? That's how I learned conflict resolution.
Right.
The drunks on Friday night.
Listen, that's it's a great way, especially now. And you and I were talking about it briefly before we came on the air. I have younger kids and young adults, and the communication skills. Even I try to always talk with them. get out of the phone, talk to that
Mm-hmm.
person, give them a call, go say, it's just so easy to send a snap or whatever they're doing. I'm like, ay,
Yeah. The
you know,
context, yeah, you can have
yeah.
in the email is not quite the same as a face to face or even a conversation. Yeah, over the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, different.
I mean, if you walked into one of your practices with a declining morale, what's one of the first warning signs that you look for? What do you're walking in there, or is it a conversation with the owner? You could talk,
No,
what, no?
no, it would be with the team. If I walk into a practice and the first people I'm going to come in contact with are going to be the CSRs behind the desk, and if they don't pick up their heads and look at me and say hi, and they're busy and they're on the phone, or there's no one at the front desk, I'm usually that's gonna be a red flag for me. If there's some bickering and gossip and finger pointing, or there's division between the teams, whether that's a front desk team and the back, a treatment team,
Yeah.
or the associates and the treatment team, or some kind of division, then there's usually some type of culture red flag. That division, that gossip, that's usually a point where I'm going to have conversations with the team individually. And you'd be surprised what they will say to me individually when I come in and have conversations with them and say, hey, let's get real. And what they say with me is, confidential, and I won't share it. And say, let's time to work. Let's roll the sleeves up and, get in and figure it out, right? Start fixing things little by little and figuring out who the sacred cow is. That's usually a problem, having a sacred
Mm-hmm.
cow in the practice. Who's the one that gets away with murder, literally gets away with anything, and there's no consequences. Accountability is usually a big problem at a practice. There's a lack of accountability because nobody wants to be the one that's going to hold somebody accountable, lay the hammer down. So it can be a lot of different things, but the number one thing I see is bad communication, and the second thing I will see is a lack of accountability. Almost always will just destroy a
Yeah.
culture. So.
But in your experience, both can be fixed if the
Oh,
team, and
absolutely.
obviously, I guess the leadership, the owner, they're willing to say, "Hey, I do want to address this."
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And honestly, I tell the practice owner, the practice owner doesn't really have to do much. They have to be willing to support boots on the ground, who's ever doing it.
hmm,
They have to be willing to say whatever she says or he says, who's ever laying the law down. But I usually just tell the practice owner to say, I need to go to surgery now. Talk to them. I have to go to my next room, because the practice owner is usually the one that doesn't want to have to quote deal with it, right? Like, I don't want to deal
yeah,
with it. I've got, that's why you're here. That's why, I've got a practice manager, or sometimes they do, but most of the time they don't. They're busy working in their practice. They've got cases,
right,
they've got surgery, they've got things to do, and that's okay. That's why they went to vet school. So
right.
the business side of it is the human component side of it, and so that's 100% okay. But their response has to be then, let's let somebody else deal with it. That's their job. I've got a case to see. We'll talk about this later. Go see so and so, whoever it is. It's just when they say, well, well,
Yeah,
then I'm like, oh no, here we go. So I say, no, I'm sorry, I
yeah.
got a case, I gotta go.
Well, it's good they're receptive to it. Because it could lead. I guess even before you get there, can lead to turnover or potential turnover. And obviously, I think you know, for us, I think staffing retention remain one of the major concerns throughout the profession, in trying to what causes turnover, and when you have somebody who's good, you know what do you, how do you handle like potential turnover? How do you kind of address that? So it's hard to find good people in practices, so you don't have that. And is culture a big part of that?
Culture is such it's a big buzzword right now, and I feel like it's kind of one of those words
Yeah,
that's just been beaten to death. And
yeah,
one of the things I try to, when I do most of my lecturing recently, is really been on retention, is keep the team that you have, and doing that through culture retention strategies like mentorship and training and practice efficiency and utilizing the team that you have and paying attention to the human component. I think one of the trends that we're seeing a lot right now is big push on practice efficiency. And I'm actually doing a 2-part series for WVC right now. The first one is in Nashville at their inaugural conference in Nashville. And then I'm following it up with a second part in in Vegas in 2027. And it's on efficiency, but it's really on, this is how you can get your practice efficient, but you can't be efficient without having a human component to that. So recognizing that we really are focusing on efficiency in our practices right now, but it's not to see another case, right? Embrace AI, embrace technology, do the things that you need to do to be efficient, but it's not to see another case. It's so that we can have a human component with our team, but also with our clients. So we can spend a few more moments with our clients and build relationships, so that we can spend a few more minutes with our team and do some training, or, train on the AI or train on the, technology, or enhance our skill set in our team so that we can retain our team and work on what does our team need so that we can retain our team. If we don't keep our talent, we're going to have a revolving door at the front. And if we keep the revolving door, then we can't build relationship with our clients. And if we can't build relationship with our clients, then our practices are just self-imploding. Like the whole, that it just is this, chicken or the egg, right? It's going to happen. It's just a matter of, I always say, like, walk off Noah's Ark and meet the humans that are, that are in the 21st century. Like, we are so stuck on the way we've always done it. And we really, really, really need to get off the ark and do it better.
I think I'm going to steal that from you. I like that one. Walk off the ark and do it better. I'm always looking for little tidbits. I'm going to take that one. I'm going to repurpose it. I like that.
Drives me crazy.
No, but it's great what you're talking about. Just because you obviously you want to lean into being more efficient doesn't mean it has to immediately be, I got to get more clients in the door. I got to get more clients in the door. Spend the time with the clients that you have, and obviously, what's the most important thing of any business? It's the people that are in it.
Right. Spend it on your people so that your people can grow your business. That's the old Zig Ziglar, right? Build your people so your people can build your business, and don't worry about the next case. They're always going to be there. It's build your team and be employee centric so that your employees then can retain those employees and retain that talent and build that talent so that you have the talent there instead of searching for the talent. So my big lectures and presentations have been a lot on what are you doing to retain your talent? Stop looking for talent. Keep the damn talent you have. And you wouldn't be searching if you could keep the talent you have. And what are we doing to make sure that we have retention plans and, mentorship and training and retention bonuses and all the things that we need to keep the talent in our teams? We're missing that boat.
I'm still stuck on the Zig Ziglar reference because now I'm really dating myself and I'm laughing. If you ever mention that in one of your presentations?
It's all over my presentation.
They're like, who the hell is Zig?
Someone came up to me. Of course, he was our age, and he said something about, I love Zig Ziglar. And I was like, you're probably the only person in the audience who knew who he is.
He's the best. Oh, my God. Was, like Instagram and all those reels were before his time. He would crush it on that stuff.
Yeah, right.
It's interesting when you talk about, spending more time with your clients too. My wife and I are great examples. We've been with our vet 4 years now. No, my vet, he sold his practice to corporate, and I don't have corporate, independent, whatever you want to do, that's fine. But, they never took the opportunity to reach out to us at all. I have no relationship with their practice at all. Now, my vet, who's 72 when he sold, so he just officially retired last month.
Oh,
He worked until then. So, but he'd call my wife, he'd call me, he'd text us,
yeah.
old school, right?
Yeah.
Not that you have to go to that extent, but he was the glue for us
Yes.
to be there. And I've always said to my wife, once he's done, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
He has nothing to do
There's
with
no
it.
relationship.
I don't know anybody, no relationship,
Yeah.
So it's just, our chairman, Barry Mandelbaum, the firm, Mandelbaum Barrett, he is going to be 90 in December. And he will tell you, he's been practicing over 50 years, we are in the people business.
That's right.
It's about people.
It's service.
Dealing with people.
That's right.
And you forget that in service, and it's no different here in the veterinary industry. I called up another one of my clients who's in the area, and I said, hey, so-and-so, because he knew who my vet was. I'm like, hey, we're coming down. He goes, yeah, great. We'll love to have you come over. It's just, because they never took the time,
Yeah.
to pick their nose up and say, hey, so-and-so is leaving. We want to keep you. I'm curious
It's about service. Yeah, you got to do it. Spend more time with your clients, whatever that may look like. Connect with them, and you will keep them. The lifetime spend with the client is over $10,000, and if you keep that, then you're not searching for new clients. You don't need to market. Cater to the top 20% of your clients, and that's what all you need.
Yeah, I go there. I always felt comfortable. Whatever the bill was, and paying whatever
That's
he
right.
said. Yeah, sure,
That's
we're
right.
doing it. I trusted him.
That's right.
He's my doctor. So have employee expectations changed over the past several
sure.
years in your experience?
Oh, even since COVID.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, big shift since even
better,
since COVID.
worse. What do you see? What are you seeing?
Well, I think, like we talked about before too, is the Gen X is completely different. Like when I managed Gen X and Boomers when I was younger manager, though that has completely changed, right? I now have to manage millennials and Gen Z, and that's a completely different generation than managing Gen Xers and Boomers. Like like we said, Gen Xers, we want to work, right? Millennials and Gen Zs are a little bit different. And that's great because they have definitely taught me how to not need to work 90 hours a week like I used to. But there's a change there. And so the expectations are different. And so practices need to shift that also. Like you're saying, that practice owner was 72. So we have a boomer and they're still working, right? So
yeah, right.
That's going to be a shift. Right, where they don't have that traditional need to work 90 hours a week, where a millennial is not going to do that. And so knowing that we can't expect that from a millennial or a Gen Z, where they're not going to want to do that. So we have to change that model. Then I'm saying, okay, we can't expect somebody to work 60 hours a week. So we have to be more flexible with what they're going to look like, if their shifts or their hours or their days, or, how is that going to look? Can they leave at, 11 o'clock to go catch the preschool, kiddo show or something and then come back? So can we be more flexible with that? And that's, again, when I go back to saying, are you being more employee centric, saying, what is it that you need? Do you have a mom that wants to run out or a dad that wants to run out and catch, a soccer game on the Saturday? They're willing to work, but they want to go catch a soccer game and then come back. Okay, well, can you have a flex schedule? Can you, have that flexibility in your calendar and say, well, who's to say that you can't not see appointments from 11 to 1 because dad wants to go catch his kid's soccer game down the road? Well, we can't do that. Why? Says who? Why? Like, why is it that we have to have this structure that we always had before? So I'm the one that's always going to say, tell me why.
Yeah.
What's the problem there? So be thinking more of like outside of the box of saying, there's some big hurdles and obstacles and things that we have to overcome, but generational differences is a huge obstacle that we're facing with a 72-year-old practice owner versus a 32-year-old that's coming out saying, I'm having kids now and I want to make soccer games. I'll work the Saturday, but I want to go see my kid play soccer. Okay, let's make it work. If you're willing to work the soccer and we got to take a 2-hour break for a soccer game, I'm gonna make it work because I want the revenue for the Saturdays. So just being thoughtful of what do our employees need? What do they want? How can we be conscious of making the business model work for us? How can we still build relationship with our clients and take time with the clients, all still while balancing a little bit of that um, efficiency in there too, right? Can we still be efficient while closing at 2 hours in the middle of the day? I don't know. Can we?
Yeah.
Let's see what that model is going to look like, right? Can we
Right.
do it? And still, still generating enough revenue to make sure that we're, maximizing profits and 20 to 22% revenue at minimum. So
Yeah, I love what you're saying. You're asking the question, can we do it? That's why they're bringing you in there to ask the tough questions, and the answer shouldn't be, well, no, we can't because that's what we've always done.
yeah,
That's what
get
we've
off
always
the
done.
ark. Get off
Right?
the ark.
Things are changing. Things are.
Yeah.
We all know things are changing. I think people in our generation we're not that 72-year-old, but you're also not that 30-year-old. We're kind of in between, and you're kind of trying to adapt on both sides. My father used to always say, like, be like the bamboo. You got to be bending in the wind.
Yes.
He
Yeah,
used
out
that
here we
analogy
see the
with
palm tree.
the palm tree.
Yeah,
Okay,
out
there
here's
you
the
go.
palm tree.
Yeah.
Sunny
Right.
California.
Oh, yeah. I like that better, but it's the same analogy. He used to, when I got married, he told me that. I'm like, the hell are you talking about? Then after a while, I'm like, oh, I get what you meant by that.
Aha,
I get it,
aha.
But it makes sense in terms of, listen, why can't we do that?
Right.
Because it's not going to cost you any more money to shut down maybe for 2 hours and open, but you're going to make that, that employee a lot happier, and that's going to, that'll eventually it's going to lead, to better culture and better efficiency.
And
You would hope,
retention.
that's all part of
Right.
it, retention.
Right. Yeah, you're going to keep that veterinarian. Yeah.
What about burnout? How significant in your experience, in your view, is burnout today in veterinary medicine?
Yeah, I would say it's something that I'm a little bit more sensitive to because of coming into practices that typically when I'm brought in, the culture is usually crappy. So I'm looking for that specifically because, hey, we have a culture problem, and so I'm looking for it. Just like I'm looking for an OSHA violation, right? I'm looking for that to say, hey, is this going to be a problem there? And I'm talking with practice managers of saying, are we looking for signs that we can prevent it? Are we doing preventative medicine, right? Are we having open communication and psychologically safe environments where somebody can say, hey, I have some moral injury to this case. I am not going to permit a financial euthanasia. Like, I'm not going to do that, right? So if we're struggling with a case, then are we allowed to talk about it without fear of somebody judging me for it, or without being told you're gonna do it, right? I was once given a syringe of Euthisol and was told to euthanize a 16-week-old boxer puppy because it had a broken leg, and the owners couldn't afford to do the surgery. I was like, hell to the no, that is not happening. So we'll amputate this leg and I'll pay for it. Like, that's not happening. We're not going to euthanize a 16-week-old otherwise healthy puppy because it has a broken leg. Like, no.
Right.
So that's moral injury, right? And we start to see when we have too big of a caseload or cases where we have that type of a moral injury, like, no, I'm not doing that. And we start to see these signs of burnout because it just chips away at our ethics or our moral compass little by little. And so we have to be sensitive to that, and say, managers at least, I think, should be more sensitive to that, so we can start seeing, like, hey, are we seeing signs of this with our team? And if we are, we need to make space for those conversations. So, after a euthanasia, there's a mandatory 10-minute take a break. Go outside and smoke. And if you don't smoke, get a bubble gun. I don't care, blow bubbles outside. Do something where you are taking space for yourself. Go find a puppy and get some puppy kisses or some kitten wiggles, and remember why you're in this profession. Even if it was a case that needed to go be with Jesus a long time ago, Like,
Yeah, yeah.
go take some space for yourself. Call your kid, call your partner, your spouse, whatever. Um, go have some chocolate. I don't care, but take some space for yourself emotionally and make sure that you check in with yourself that you're okay. So just certain things that I think that we need to make sure that our practices are healthy inside and out. Celebration journals I think are great. So anytime we have something that we want to celebrate, if a brand new baby veterinary assistant or RVT, CVT like hit their first catheter. Yesterday, I had one that hit three catheters, hit all three in one day. So we wrote that down in our celebration journal. And then when we have a tough case, you go in the Zen room and you read some of that celebration journal and you remember some of those things that you got to celebrate. If you have a tough case, you go read the celebration journal. And I think those are things because we forget of all the good things that we celebrate, right? Because then if we have a
Yeah.
tough case, we can go back and be like, right, I remember last week when I hit three catheters in one day, because those tough cases really can be a gut punch to us. So I think when we can remember, we're going to have gut punch days. We're going to have hard days where we get kicked in the teeth. And if we're careful and recognize them and make space for them, and we talk about them and can work through them or have quiet time or whatever we need, and we balance those and can remember, to do the things that we need to do to recover from those successfully, then we don't have as much burnout. And so I encourage managers like be conscious of those and do the things that we need to do to make sure that we're recovering from them. And as someone who's a big fitness buff, I think about when I have an injury. Right now, I'm battling some plantar fasciitis, and so I am doing my, stretches and my icing and my anti-inflammatories and all the things to recover from my injury. And so it's the same thing in our practices, right? We have to make sure we're doing all the right things so that our injury doesn't get worse or that we're recovering from our injury on a regular basis. So being conscious of it, we have to recover from that injury and we have to be aware that it's there. We can't just forget about it. Otherwise, it's going to turn into a major, major problem down the road.
That's a great analogy. It really it crystallizes exactly what you're talking about. If you're in the game, you're playing a sport, it's very likely you're going to get injured. It's just a risk of
Yep.
playing that sport. But
Yep.
how are you going to deal with that injury when it occurs?
Yeah.
Educating yourself. Similar to the practice, it's those issues. Everything you just went through.
They're going to
it's
happen.
inevitable. They're going to happen. So I know, the journal or what and these things don't cost money. It's a matter of just being
right.
prepared.
Just thinking
as a
about
team, thinking about it. You talk about burnout and moral compass. I love what you said there. I think so many of us affiliate burnout with working, just work. It's more than just work. What type of work? You may not be, working 60 hours a week, but your work, the type of work that you're
It's
doing.
the type of cases that we
doing.
see.
Yeah. I mean, that's to be prepared for.
Yeah.
What about HR? What somebody again putting on another hat that you wear in terms of HR consulting. What are some of the most common HR mistakes that you encounter when you're consulting with a practice?
Well, that depends. Is that in California or the other 49 states?
All right, I should have. Yeah, I should have been more specific. Right. Yeah.
So in California,
yeah.
it's all the legal landmines that we have to navigate, right? It's all, loads of those. But most of the time, even if it's outside of California, it's the peopling aspect of it. It's making sure that we are checking in with our team and saying, hey, where are you? What do you need? Because even in California, when it comes down to, we may be a sue happy state, but it comes down to, did we have a conversation with that person? Did we talk to them on a human level and say, where are you at? What did you need? How can I help you? Where can I support you? My job as a manager is to, bring you whatever support that you may need to the best of my ability. So Do we have an EAP program for you? Do we have health benefits for you? If not, where can I get those for you? Do you need more time off? Can I give that to you? Paid or unpaid? Do we have,
Mm-hmm.
scrubs that I can get for you? Do you need a raise? Do you need feedback? Can I coach you on something? Are you having a problem with an associate, with a practice owner, with another teammate? So it's just that check-in and saying, where are you? Employees crave feedback. They crave it.
Yeah.
And we don't give enough of it. And the once a year of like, here is your performance evaluation,
Right.
and
Check the box.
it's
Right.
bullshit. It's horrible. So giving them the feedback of being able to say, hey, like yesterday, I sat down with an employee and I was like, you're doing amazing. Your skill set has skyrocketed and exponentially in the last month. We gave her a raise. She's hit all of her SMART goals in the last, I think, like 6 weeks that we gave her. We gave her 3 or 4 months and she's hit them in 6 weeks. And we're like, here's money. You're doing fantastic. Pat on the back. Like, I can't even tell you. And she just had this big beaming smile on her face. Like, I want to encourage and motivate my workers and my employees so that every time I talk with them, they leave like high-fiving and fist bumping and like, what's next? Yeah, let's go, let's do it. And I don't want them walking out kicking rocks and ho-humming and blah, 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 blah. Even if it's
Right.
a performance improvement plan and it's do better or else, I still want to be able to say, where can I support you? Do I need to buy you another alarm clock? Do I need to show up on your, knock, 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 get out of bed? But
Right.
where can I support you? What can I do to help you? And if this isn't the right job for you, like if you want to go be a pilot, how can I help you go be a pilot? Can this job get you enough money saved up to go apply for pilot school? Like I've done that with people and said, like,
Right.
if you want to be a beekeeper, I want you to be the best beekeeper you can be. Let's get you through beekeeping school. But for right now, you need to show up on time or you can't go to beekeeping
Right.
school, right? Like there's no money for beekeeping
How can I help
school.
you?
Yeah.
Right. We're here to support you. How can we help you?
Exactly.
Right.
So it's really partnering with employees and communicating with them. And it's back to beginning communication of being able to say,
Yeah.
like, where is it that I can help, support, train, coach, teach you to be the best pilot, beekeeper, veterinarian, whatever it is that you want to be, for this practice for right now. And then if you want to fly, bird, fly, let's,
Yeah.
we'll make that happen. I'll give you your exit
It's funny you're
strategy.
talking, and I wrote down communication. I put 2 stars next to it as you're talking. It just comes back. I mean,
Yeah.
it's basic. Just communicate. What so many, I guess, owners, either don't have the time or the skill set or are comfortable doing. So it doesn't happen, and then that builds up resentment, and
All the
one thing
things.
leads to another.
I say it's like an
Where do
abscess.
you see-
Yeah.
Yeah, right. It really is, which is why you come in there to kind of alleviate that discomfort just by having those, I guess, initially difficult conversations or uncomfortable, but they become part of the practice because you're like, oh, I can have those conversations, or you put the policies, procedures, and standards in place so they can stand on their own when you're not there.
Yeah. Yeah. And coach managers, if they have a manager, supervisor, even, and I do a lot of Zoom calls because I, work all over. I'll do Zoom calls too, a lot too, and just say like, let's just chat. Let's just have a conversation. If you don't have the time to do it, that's fine. I will have a Zoom call with somebody. And just the pressure valve is amazing that you can just feel the pressure release when I can have a conversation with somebody. It's amazing.
Because they don't, to your point, they probably don't have the opportunity to have that conversation, and they're really they're really looking forward to it. Where do you see owners most commonly leaving money on the table? Is it go back to the maybe not having a community? I'm just thinking out loud with you now. You've been talking, not just the poor communication and the communicate. It almost kind of dovetails into the employees or maybe the clients.
Yeah, I would
Just
say
not being efficient enough.
Well, from a client aspect, and it kind of works the same as an employee aspect. But from a client aspect, what I often see is they I like the 80-20 rule where your top 20% of your clients are going to be your bread and butter clients. And I see a lot of practices, well, they will worry about like the lower end of their clients. Like, what are you doing? They
Yeah.
will tell a top 20% of their client, like, oh, I don't have an appointment for you today. You have to wait till next week. It just blows me away. So like first off, like your top 5 to 10% of your clientele, you flag those,
Basic.
and your
Yeah.
CSRs should never, ever, ever even ask if those can be seen. 100%, if that client calls, that client is seen the same day, period. End of story. You get them in. Don't even go ask the doctor. They are seen. If there's not an appointment slot for them, they get seen as a drop off, period. And if you have those are your A clients. If you have what I would consider like a C client, which is anything below your 20%, you call that C client and you say, I'm sorry, the doctor can't see you today. I have an appointment for you next week. And you bump that C client and you get your A client in, period. End of story. Your A clients are spending a ton of money with you. Like, bump the C client. They are someone who comes in once every year to 18 months. They are probably going to say yes to most of what your recommendations are, but they're going to decline stuff. Your A client, like you said, I don't care what it costs. You don't even have to give me an
Yeah.
estimate. Just do what you need to do. And I'll pick my pet up when it's done. Like, I don't need to, here
Yeah.
you go. Just do what you need to do. So why am I going to
Right.
fuss with my C client? I'm going to always see my A client and tell my C client, like, I'll see you
Yeah.
next week when I have an appointment for you. So bump your C client and get your A client in. So I see them leaving money on the table in that aspect, where flag your A clients and then fill in the rest of your schedule with your B clients. And then if there's an appointment left, sure, take your C client, right? And your
Right.
D clients are ones that are like, have probably been warned and should be warned, and on their last leg. And your F clients are ones that you have fired. F for fired. Get them out the door. Don't even see them. A lot of people don't fire clients. I don't tolerate those clients. I have no problem firing clients. So I kind of grade them and have a lot of practices on that system, and absolutely zero problems. Then, like, there's no CSR writing in the back like, hey, Mrs. Smith is here, can, she's on the phone, can we see her today? Like, this should be not even a question. Like, do not
Yeah.
waste the energy of asking that question. She's an A client, get her in. So I see there's a lot of money on the table being left in that sense of not having that organized. And I think it kind of works a little bit similarly with employees. Then on the flip side of it, of you are wasting employees, resources, time, talent, when you're turning your employees over. You're not maximizing the skill set of your employees. You're losing employees because your hospitals are not either training them, utilizing them, treating them appropriately, elevating them, sending them to CE, whatever that employee needs. We're not taking care of them. And so they could go to a practice across the street for $1 less an hour because the culture is better, or because
Yeah.
they're going to get more CE money or something that's important to the employee. And we haven't taken the time to ask what the employee needs. Well, they're going to give me 2 hours off on Saturday to go to my kid's soccer game. Okay, can we make that work for them and they're going to stay? So are we listening to what the employee needs are, and are we making sure that we can make that work for them? Um, and really trying to think outside of the box and say, how can we make this work, instead of being on the ark with Noah doing it the same way over and
Right.
over
Same
again.
way.
So
Yeah. I'm laughing when you say that. When I since retired, but I was very involved in my town as a councilman. Served as a mayor a bunch of years. Was
I
very
remember you
involved in it.
telling me that.
And
Yeah.
and I remember I did it for 20 years. And I
Yeah.
remember when I was in my early 30s. I remember getting on the council. I had young kids at the time. I'm going to school with my kids, taking them to different dropping them off, whatever. And the parents would come up to, who are my friends of mine, kids, and they'd be like, oh yeah, we want to have this, or we want to do this in town. and I'd go talk to either the manager or somebody else within town hall, and it used to drive me nuts when the response was not even like, oh, that's a good idea, we'll look into it. Oh, that's the way we've always done it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like on Halloween, we used to give out like orange, these flyers, like paper flyers, right, in orange, and that's how it always happened with the recreation department. And it used to drive me nuts because it made me, I'm the one, the tip of the spear, and I'm going back to the school or seeing one of my friends, and they're scratching their head saying, that's the way you've always done it.
And that's the answer. That's the end of the sentence. Period.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
No more.
I
No
wish
more
I had
discussion.
that ARC thing. I'm like, yeah. But you'll learn. That's all good. So but it's so true, and it applies in business.
Yeah.
Where do you see, AI, like culture, burnout, AI? Like what role will technology, or what will and does technology and AI play, in practice management and practices? What are you seeing? What do you anticipate seeing over, you're looking out 3 to 5 years in your experience?
Yeah, definitely. It's here to stay. We're not going to get around it. It's like cell phones, right? We're not going to get around it. It's here to stay. We have to embrace it. Obviously with caution. We're not under HIPAA laws because it's not human, but we still have to be very
Right.
careful. I do see hospitals that will upload charts like from a referral hospital, let's say, into a GP, and they'll say, hey, give me a summary. And I'm like, whoa, there's all kinds of stuff in there. And then managers that will put stuff in like a performance review in Claude. And I'm like, whoa, you got to redact all that stuff because, hey, that's out there, right? So we have to still be
Right.
careful of that, right? We have to be careful, but I think it's for sure it's here to stay. And the more we embrace it and do it with caution and care, the more efficient we can become. And the more efficient we can become, again, the more time that we have with our clients to build relationship and for our team to build relationship, and then more time that we have for our team to spend on training or to spend with each other, to spend with clients. So
Yeah.
there's a big component that is it works in our practices if we make it work, if we do it right, and we're careful with it. There's some practice management softwares that are building AI into the software, which I think is fantastic because then we don't have to outsource that, right? It's within, and so we kind of avoid that HIPAA piece, if you will. But it's built within our PIM, so we're the caution is there. I think that's a big piece, but any piece of technology that we have, we're not very good at embracing it or utilizing it to its maximum capacity, right? So do
Yeah.
some training. I think we stuck at like when we get a new PIMS and then a year goes by and we're like, hey, are we doing retraining on it? Like we only use a third of this. Get some more training so we can use more and more
Right.
and more of it. Like even if our cell phones or our computers, like we only use a fraction of it. Like we're just not good at that,
I know.
right? We're just not good at it.
Right.
So making sure
Yeah.
that we're using more of that so that we can be as efficient as we possibly can. And then recognizing, again, that it's not about the more cases, right? It's about making sure that we're having the human component, human relationship. We're still shaking hands and making eye contact and having the text messages with our clients and reserving the time with our teams that are so important. Having the lunches, like you said, bringing the trucks in. I love that. I do
Right.
that often with our teams, making sure that we're having the times and the check-ins with our teams. That's so important. So there is a time that like embrace AI and technology as much as we possibly can so that we can carve the time out for clients and our team. It's so important.
Yeah. Just get better, to be more efficient, be better, It's interesting you're talking about AI on the human side. I got my physical, I don't know, 2 months ago, and new doctor went in there, had his phone out. It was the first time I can remember in the longest time where he actually had a real conversation with me. He didn't have his nose in his chart and just talking to me. And it was really, I felt like he was hearing me and listening to me, and everything was being recorded through, the software
Yep.
he had.
Yep.
And I got such a great report afterwards. It was great because I go home, my wife's asking me a million questions. I'm like, oh, it's all here.
Yeah.
It was a way to use that technology. Wanted to better communicate with the patient. I was
And you
really
had
impressed. I was like, wow, I
relationship with
like this
him.
guy. Yeah, as
Yeah.
opposed to they're looking at their watch or in and out of there so quick because they got to see patients.
Yeah. And write up their charts.
So
Imagine if you didn't have to do
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. So in similar in terms of embracing AI technology, you got this still this balance between independent practices and corporate practices. How do independent practices remain or continue to remain competitive, one of retaining talent, clients? We here I talk about as of like January of 2023, I see this pendulum that has shifted over into the independent side. There's still a lot of corporates there. They're still doing a lot of acquisitions and whatnot. But I have so many clients in the independent side, startups, owners selling now more so than ever to their associates, or maybe or associates buying into a practice. It seems, and I love it. I mean,
I know. Yes.
I really
Yeah.
enjoy it. It's great. What are you seeing? And when you go into another practice, what are you advising or consulting on in terms of ways they can maintain and remain competitive?
Well, I think it works in just about any type of business model. When you see some of the mom and pop, like say restaurants or shops versus the corporate restaurants or shops, it's going to work the same. There's a relationship when you go into a mom and pop restaurant and the mom and pop, right? Because there's a
Yeah.
relationship there. And because when you go in there and mom's there cooking her, you know, great meal that she does, and the daughter works there and she knows your cup of coffee, that how you like it, right? And you go in there every anniversary with your wife, or you go in there once a week, right, to eat with your family. There's relationship there. And with private owners, that's one of the things that I really, really focus on is there is the corporates are going to outplay you, out technology you, out AI you, out business you, out
Pay,
market you,
I'll
outpay
probably,
you across the
yeah,
board,
right.
right? So you really have to focus on retaining your clients. And in order to retain your clients, you have to have the relationship with your clients. You have to have the mom and pop shop, like you said, when my veterinarian sells and he retires, I'm going to leave. If you have the
Yeah,
relationship with your clients, then they will stay with you. They will hand over their pet and say, here you go. Do what you need to do, come back. And so will your team. More often than not, almost always, I hear team members say, I work for this doctor, so and so, whether it's the associate or the practice owner. I work for the doctor. They don't care whose name is on the building. They work for the doctor because it's a relationship. They love working with that doctor. They love that doctor's medicine. They love how the doctor thinks, works with clients, does surgery, whatever it is. There's a relationship with that doctor of why the employees work with the doctor. So it goes back to like if you want to retain your team, work with your team, build relationship with your employees. Make sure that you have a good retention program, that you have a good mentorship program, that you have a good relationship with your team, right? And if that means that you bring in, you know, someone who is working on your culture or making sure it's the unicorn practice that you want it to be, absolutely. If you're not good at that, good, go do surgery, right? You don't need to do it then. Bring somebody else in to do it for you.
right.
But make sure that you're keeping your clients and keeping your team and that everybody is, you know, working on that's the goal there is hey, we got to make sure that those two components are happy. And are you looking at that? What KPIs are you looking at to make sure that it's not festering and abscessing, right? That clients are when they're walking out the door, right? Are you checking on that, and that your team is not staying there because they have golden handcuffs, right, and don't have a choice.
Because they want to.
Yeah,
Right. They want
right.
it.
They
Right.
get to
Right.
go to work every
Right.
day, right? They're excited to get up
Right.
and come to work every day. Yeah. Those are the two things that private practices are going to hands
Win every
down
time.
every time,
Yeah.
every time.
Yeah.
And I've got it, proven in
Yeah.
practices that I work with on a regular basis, where I've got them lined up to say, hey, when there's an opening at that practice, can I work there?
Yeah, your analogies are great, because it kind of, again, crystallizes the issue. And I'm thinking, inevitably on Fridays when you roll around, someone will say, hey, let's go get something to eat or let's order something. We typically, there's a bunch of restaurants where we are, but there's one in particular where we go to a lot because we know the owner. Even if I place a call in there, when I go pick it up and bring it home, sometimes I always want to eat it at home, you know, he's there.
Yep.
Hey, Pete, how are you?
Yeah.
Give me a handshake, hands me the food,
Yep.
whatever. He does. We use him for Thanksgiving a lot of times. He
Yep.
supplements a lot of what we're getting. But he's boots on the ground. He's there, and I know he's there.
Yeah.
And it just, no, I guess that's a great analogy. Whether it's a restaurant,
Doesn't
a
matter.
company, or a clinic, it's all going to be the same. You're going to win on that every time.
Every time.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let me ask you, before we wrap up, going back to your roots, what advice would you give someone stepping into a management position, or for the first time? It's new to them, obviously. There's a lot of, I guess there's a lot of anxiety, I guess, with a certain type of people. I guess, what advice would you give somebody who's just getting into management for the first time?
Ask a lot of questions. Ask why for
Yeah.
everything and ask why 5 times. Don't make any assumptions. Assumptions is making an ass out of you and me. Never make an assumption. And always ask why. Why are we doing it that way? Why do you feel that way? Why is that occurring? What's happening? Why is that? Tell me more about that. Why is it that you feel that way? What can we do? Why? Always be inquisitive as a practice manager. Tell me more and never assume.
Yeah, listen, Andrea, it's great to end on that because that's kind of how you started it. You go into a practice, first thing you're doing is asking questions. You're asking. You started that way. You're asking. You're separating the teams, asking questions, just trying to, I guess, gather information so then you can solve the problem,
It's like a
address the
puzzle.
issues that are
Every
there.
practice is a
Yeah,
puzzle.
like a puzzle. Well, your career. I'm looking at it and listening to you, and I appreciate you being on here. It really demonstrates that successful practice is just not built on great medicine, but it's also just as important to have great leadership in order to have a great practice. And whether that's something that the owner has ingrained in him, or someone then where bring somebody like you in, which I encourage to help them. That's how they're going to lead and grow their practice. Where can our listeners learn more about you, learn more about FurPaws Consulting? Where can they go?
They can go to my website at furpawsconsulting.com or email me at andrea@furpaws.us or check out my podcast at Positive Leadership Podcast. Any of those places, they can find out more about me.
Awesome. And we'll drop all that when we drop this on our social media. We'll put all those links in there so people can find you.
Yeah,
So
great.
Andrea, thanks for joining me
Thanks,
today.
Pete. This was
Great catching up
fun.
with you.
Yeah. It was
Yeah,
good stuff.
great. And really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, all right. Take it easy. Have a good one.